Welcome to Sunny and Sunnier. I'm Sunny, this is Sunnier, and this is our son.
I don't want to be your son. Welcome to the Good Time Boys with Veggie. Would you like to introduce everyone? Because I stole your bit of singing it.
This is Veggiewagon, and this is Maldhound, and we are the Good Time Boys.
I'm Steve Oranges.
Dead on the floor. Dead on the floor.
I'll be Steve Oranges today.
The only thing that I contribute to this podcast is doing the intro jingle.
I'll let you do the outro again, okay? I'll let you do the outro. All right, so we're talking today about deck building, which is a big thing in Commander because the most important thing you do before you play a game of Commander is put together the deck that you're going to play in Commander. And that helps determine how much fun you might have because you can build a deck in a way that is just not fun.
Like with 1/1 counters in it.
That was good.
That was...
But I want to start with our basic deck building philosophies because we are three different humans. You could just watch me and Veggie's deck building streams every Wednesday. We do deck building and deck techs. And you could just see our different philosophies. Like when I wanted to put Mishra's Bobble in and Veggie made, what face did you make the whole time? Yeah, Veggie made that face the whole time when I suggested Mishra's Bobble. So I don't want to start. I want one of you two to start on give some basic deck building philosophies you have.
Okay. I think my most basic deck building philosophy is probably for building any type of casual list. This is when I have what I would consider like a dumb gimmick or thing I'm trying to achieve. And the place I always start from and iterate from is, what do I believe my main priority is? I put 25 of those in the deck, whether those are creatures, instants, sorceries, artifacts, whatever I think the main like thing I want to do is, 25 of those go in the deck. And then I think about, how do I convert the main thing I want to do into winning a game of Magic the Gathering? I put 10 to 15 of those in the deck. The rest are silly cards that make me happy, and then 40 of them are lands, and then the deck is made. And those decks have never not worked. If a deck like that doesn't work, it means you're wrong about what the deck's main priority is. Like you could build a Kinnan deck and you could think your main priority was non-human creatures, and that just means you're wrong about what the deck's main priority was. But I think if you're ever correct about priorities, that template has never failed me. I've abandoned all like this many ramp, this many removal, this many board wipes. I just go like, what's priority 1? 25? How do I win? 10 to 15? What's kooky? What makes me happy?
Yeah,
and it turns...
I mean, that's a whole nother thing. What makes you happy?
Well, a lot of what makes me happy is blowing up other people's shit. So like one of my most recent decks, I was like, I have 15 slots for cards I like. They were all counter spells.
You actually play into one of my biggest philosophies. I more focus on the commander specifically. So when I have picked my commander, I go hardcore in building around that. And that also goes into identifying what the deck is so you can put those things in. Like when you build a Hensi deck, you need creatures that cost more than 4 mana that are great to blitz, that have ETBs and die. And I specifically go hard around the commander. I think... I
mean, I will say, I agree with you. I think that's just like a flexibility in how you define priorities, because the VV deck I just built, what I consider priority number 1 is keep VV alive. So the 25 is interaction that prevents VV from dying while triggering him. And so it really is just a like semantic.
I mean, yeah, it's the same. If I was going to build a VV deck, like it would be the same thing. It would be VV's, I need to protect VV so I can, but I can do that because all the actual main priority of VV is instant sorceries. Oh yeah, those can do that. And because instant sorceries can just do that job, it works perfectly.
No, it's all permanent based. Yeah, creature based protection for VV.
I got to play my VV deck. I got to remove an indestructible counter from an 8 mana 3/3 to copy the red Gear Hulk 3 times on the stack. I think I saw God in that game. It was some of the most fun I've ever had. VV Stompy, believe in it. It's still bracket 3, unfortunately. I thought it might be bracket 2. I was wrong as fuck.
You put a Myojin of Cryptic Dreams in.
Yeah, I did. I also put the 10 mana Myojin
that draws a card for each permanent you control. This shit rips, brother.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 mana Myojin fucking sucks dog shit if you don't have 10 mana on turn 6 because you're using Vivi as your commander. God.
If I was building Vivi, the permanents that I played would all be other pingers. I'd be like, yeah, let's just like, this is what I want. I want to ping. Like, it would just be a ping deck, and that's just because I want to focus on my commander. I want to look into what that commander does well.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is, like, I built that VV deck trying to build around the commander, but I think there's so much you can do if you're willing to branch off, if you're willing to go on a tangent on something the commander can support. Like, one thing I dislike is when decks are, I want to activate my commander's text box as many times as possible. I like taking things to be like, what can this commander make good? Like, I did VV Stomp because I was like, oh, this commander's broken as shit. It makes so much mana, it could probably make some, like, really unplayable cards seem good because you can float a lot of mana really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And that's why the fucking Myojins ended up in there. Is I was like, I wanted to play around VV, and I was like, well, that's the Shyamalan in my brain being like, I must subvert what's, like, the best about this commander. And I was like, what else is legitimately strong that most people aren't going to play towards because they're just like, oh, I resolve curiosity. Would you like to scoop?
You've proved me right from the last episode. You said you could build a 2 VV. Boom, and you fail.
I think you can, but I do think I have to pare it back. The stuff I thought was going to be like kooky and mid, actually good. You can definitely make it worse from where I've made it. But yeah, better than I thought it would be.
What is your most basic deck building philosophy? Like the main idea that you tend to go with to start?
Let's see. How deep do we want to go here?
We want to go deep.
I'm going to have to breeze by a really interesting point so that we can discuss the deck building at all. But it's important for understanding where I'm starting from for deck building. This game is self-expression. This game is self-expression. You're playing a 4-player game where optimal gameplay does not always matter. Other players can mess you up. This is not 1v1 Magic, and not everybody is playing CEDH. And even the players that are, not everybody is just going, well, this is the best deck that exists, so I will pick that because I would like to win game in best way possible. You saw a commander, or you saw a combo, or you saw an interaction that drew you to that, and something in your brain said, getting to do that in this game will make me happy. So start there. Oftentimes for me, I'll be like, oh, that's a commander. That is doing a thing that I like, that makes me interested. So I'm going to start with that. For example, one of my favorite decks that I think I will keep together forever is Danny Pink. I liked it. 1, it was monocolored, so I was restricted to the cards I could put in it. 2, I saw the potential to draw a lot of cards. And 3, I saw an archetype +1/+1 counters, or just counters in general, that would be a challenge putting together in the color that existed. So it's like, okay, what will I have fun doing? Drawing a brick of cards. So I started there. I was like, good, I need to have the commander on board, and I need things that are going to put counters on stuff. I looked for what the easiest ways to do that were, or the most consistent. And then from there, I was like, all right, similar to what you had said, Mald, was, okay, how does this turn into a win? If that is the thing you're concerned about, which it should be at some point. It doesn't have to be a high priority, but it often should be one that drives the way that you are building the deck, drives the way that you are playing your game.
It's notably priority 2 in my list, but it's just there.
Mm-hmm. And if you are thinking, well, no, that's my number 1 priority, you're wrong. You are wrong. You are wrong at every single level of playing this game, except for if you've chosen the very best CEDH deck. That's it. Something else is taking priority over winning being your number 1 priority.
I mean, this is to just be even more like broad in Magic. You, even when you step back and you go to these 60 card formats where winning is one of the main priorities, unless you are always playing the top tier deck every single event that you go to, then you are also wrong. Because
yeah, like check out Airball playing Lotus Field on the computer right now.
He literally is like
He's
Airball.
literally over there teaching Magnus Carlsen how to play Lotus Field.
But it is it is so true. Like every point in Magic has some self-expression. And you choose the decks that you find fun and that you want to experience. I didn't play Death and Taxes in Legacy because it was the best deck, because God knows it was not the best deck. But I loved White Weenies. Oh, those small little white creatures, cheating them in with Ether Vial, that shit was fun to me.
That shit haunt.
Oh, when you Ether Vial, it makes me sad that card is like slowly becoming less and less playable as the years go on. It's slowly getting power crept out. But cheating, one of the biggest events I've won, which are not very big, but like local PPTQs or whatever, but like the human deck just cheated everything with Ether Vial. God, what a Ether Vial. If only it was playable in Commander. I would play it.
I've even seen some CEDH lists where they'll sneak in. I'll see like 3 to 5 cards where I go, all right, I'm no rocket doctor, but this shit sucks. Why is this in here? And the person will tell me, it's in here because I think the deck is good enough to still win, and I really want to be able to win a game in a tournament with these on the field because I think that's hilarious.
Right.
So even at the tournament level, people are making decisions of like,
yes,
it'd be so fucking funny.
Right? Because sometimes a lot of times you're just like, you put a thing in because you're like, I will feel happiness either one, just playing this and seeing everybody go, what? Or being able to win a game and people, I can't believe I got beat by that. And that should always be your first consideration for deck building, is knowing the thing that will make you happy and leaning into that.
Yes. And that super important. Yeah. You leaning into the happiness. This is the problem with something we have talked about before on this channel, arms racing. When you start arms racing, you stop doing that. You start cutting the really fun and cool stuff in your deck for powerful stuff, and you start enjoying the game less. So that's why it's so, you want to try and avoid that as much as possible, because you want your deck to have as much fun stuff as you can that is not necessarily the most powerful. And sometimes it is. Sometimes the thing you want is like, oh yeah, heuristic study. It just does it. I don't know who that is. This is some fake human who just heuristic study does it for them.
I
That's
think
my girlfriend you're talking about.
That's the thing, is there are so many of those people. That's why heuristic study is the card that it is. There's so many people who are like, oh yeah, actually this is great. I enjoy what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a fair way to feel, because legitimately, even though like I have a deep hatred for that card, a deep one where if I never saw it in Commander again, I would be much happier person. But I still respect that somebody might look at that card and still go, I love that card. Its design is so cool. I mean, and I do still have one thing I love about it, which I'll say it again. Card sucks in every other format. It's so cool that it is broken in Commander.
So you have the thing that makes you happy. You need to look at that and go, is there a way that this turns into a win? Great. From there, you go, okay, what is stopping me from being able to do this thing? Sometimes it is just, I'd like to keep Commander on battlefield. All right, cool. The figuring out the solution to that problem is fairly straightforward. Play some stuff that protects that thing. But sometimes you're like, okay, I'd like to be able to get this combination of things on the board. And that combination of things costs like, 10, 12 mana. Then you're like, okay, I need to make sure that I live, that by the time I have enough mana to put these on the board, I'm in a position where I'm alive, I am comfortable to like tap out for these things. Great. So then you consider that in your deck building. I'm like, maybe a bad example, but you're like, okay, so I'll run some stacks. Ooh, so that we slow down the game, I'm able to set up a little bit more. It's light stacks. It's a charitable levy or something.
My friend who would play a bunch of stacks, they're not stacks, they're tax cards. It's different, guys. They're not.
Yeah, kind of to your point about thinking about how long I want the game to go, I am a huge proponent of just speed goldfishing your own decks, and specifically only until turn 5, maybe 6. I think if you, and I realize some people like variance. I don't know what's wrong with you. We can unpack that later. But I think you should, or I always try to have a crystal clear understanding of what do I want my first 5 turns to look like? How wrong can that go? Is that still a fun game of Magic? That's the floor I try to assess if you think about like propaganda effects as well. Like, do I need to disincentivize people from hitting me? How many threats do I need to be able to deal with? I want to have confidence that by turn 5 of a Magic game, I've done something that I feel good about, even if it's not the best thing I can do.
So I think a lot of what we were saying comes with time in Magic. So this is we're not going to tell you that this is going to work for you right away, because
I will. It will.
I will
it'll
too.
work for you right away. It will work for you immediately.
The playing the cards you love will work right away. That's true. I'm talking about specifically more of the assessing side. That is a lot tougher to do. Like, how do I keep my commander on the battlefield it's not easy to just know and understand how and what does that best. Like, I think we can do it and internalize it because we have played so much Magic. It's like, we understand, like, yeah, playing Slip Out the Back and 40 counter spells is going to make... I'm
doing a thing I do with Z to know when I have a thought that I'm holding. You can finish the sentence and then I'm splitting you in half.
My sentence is done. Go.
I think that is a thing we make more complicated by introducing the idea of like good and bad to new Magic players instead of just letting them work out cause and effect on their own. I do not think it is beyond the grasp of even the newest Magic player to go, okay, well, if I played my commander, the turn after that, would I have been able to protect them once? Like, that is just a yes, no. Did you have mana? Did you have the card? I think once we start going like, am I good at protecting my commander? That is when you need to have a lot of time and expertise and experience to hit them with an intuitive like, yeah, I'm good at protecting my commander. But when somebody is specifically goldfishing a deck for playing a deck, it's not a hard ask to just go like, hey, the turn after you played your commander, could you have protected them from being removed? What about 2 turns after? What about in the 3 turns after? How many times could you have protected them from being removed? And they can just give, because that number is going to be between 0 and like 2. And that is easier than we think. And the thing that makes Magic hard for new players is that instead of just letting it be, hey, there's a lot of numbers and like qualitative observations you're going to have to make, we try to tell them like, try to do this thing good. And as soon as we introduce do the thing good or do the thing bad, everybody is fucking brain dead.
So your thought is make sure the newer players have the concept. And once they understand the concept, they can do, like, for example, they put Rewind in their deck, which isn't a very good card. That's their counter spell. Rewind's cool. I know. Rewind is... I'll pick a different one. Oh my God, cancel.
No, look, don't let us lean in. Rewind, bad card. Let's hear it.
So Rewind's in general a bad card that you don't want to put in your deck as a counterspell unless you have some super synergies with it, which most decks do not. You slowly learn, it's like, oh, this one's overcosted. It's harder to hold up for mana. But because you understand that you need counterspell to maybe protect your commander, you now can take that and that becomes a learning experience. So I get what you are saying, that as long as they are on the track of like understand the concept, they can then learn from there what is potentially better.
I mean, the concept of addition, yeah. Like, I think the other thing that makes it hard is we go, oh, this game is so fun. And for a lot of people, without getting into the social psychology episode, which is coming soon, they go, if thing fun, brain off, yes? Whereas this is a game that is fun, and I think you have more fun when your brain is on. And you are, like, we should just tell more people, hey, let's try to teach you this game. Pay active attention to as many things as you can. Stop me if you need to. Ask questions. Versus the typical way we teach people is we vomit a lot of our, like, isms at them and then set ourselves up as an authority figure on like what's good in the game and tell them like, you'll learn what's good in time. But it's just like, I don't know, man, count. Did you have the resources to do the thing you wanted? No? Did you know there are cheaper things that also do that? What a riddle.
I think one of the most important takeaways we're going to have from this episode is that unlike most deck building episodes, we're not here to give you a rubric. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about more concepts. And I think, seriously, one of the biggest takeaways is going to be with fun. And what Mald said it before, chasing your highest enthusiasm. Like, honestly. And that is what deck building is really about. Because you get to, like you said, it is self-expression. And you get to do that. And that should be above everything. You have to put winning in there somewhere because unless you're bracket one. If you're literally bracket one, you don't have to put winning in there. But every other bracket, you have to put winning in there somewhere because that's what you're trying to do. That is the goal of the game ultimately. But you can still do that in an expressive way to you. Veggie will cast 30 spells on my turn that put 10 counters on his things, and he played 3 cards I've never seen before, and that is what he loves. So he will be happy. Even if it wasn't it was definitely not the most efficient way. You could have done that. Not even close. You could have just drawn 30 by doing a billion different things.
One heuristic study.
I do want to not throw out a template, but throw out some helpful numbers because one thing that I think is that is very difficult.
Before you finish your thought, just because this is with this, it's maybe a greater sign of the dynamic of the group. But as soon as you started, you were like, and just to be clear, we're not going to give you like a rubric or anything on what. And my gut instinct was immediately, I'll give you a rubric, and then just go and do it.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I gave a rubric.
I mean, I am going to throw out a couple of numbers at some point. But I think overall, this isn't what this episode is meant to be.
Yes,
right.
To clarify, my pure instinct was more driven by, just say the opposite thing that you said instead of like, that's how I feel. But yes, as you were.
But one thing that I do believe goes beyond the just, hey, do you understand addition and can you pay attention to what's happening in a game, is the statistics of a 99 card singleton library. So some number ranges I have found helpful, and what informed my rubric that I shot out earlier was, if it is a thing I want to see multiple times in the game, 25 or more. If it is a thing I want to see at least once in the game, 10 to 15 cards. If it is a thing I am okay not seeing at all that game, 10 or fewer cards. And that is for like an archetype of thing. Those aren't ultimate truths of the universe, because your decks can have different capabilities when it comes to drawing cards. Like Veggie's Danny Pink deck, you might rip through like half your library in the average game. But I found for that, like the median deck, those ranges will hold true for if you want to take X type of game action multiple times, it's like 20 to 30. If you need a finisher, that's why I put those in the 10 to 15. It's like, I need to find one. I don't need like 4 every game. And then anything as a category, if you have less than 10 of it, you are signing off on, I'm okay if I never get a single instance of this. All right, Veggie card draw ye. About to disagree with it because you draw way more cards than the average bear.
I think before you build a deck, you should have a general thought on how much of like X thing you want. No,
I don't believe so. A lot of my decks are built through making as few assumptions about what I want the deck to be, and just kind of stabbing in the dark, and then turbo goldfishing and being like, was this guess accurate as to what I thought would please me about it? Like the VV deck changed immensely from first draft to final draft because of that. And I think you gain heuristics. The longer you spend playing the game, you're like, well, these cards are good, so I'm going to play them. Like, this is an efficient removal package, yada, yada, yada. But Veggie, please prove me wrong.
I won't. I'll say the same thing. It is certainly a different philosophy. There are rubrics that exist there that work. You know, there's a very popular one from like the Command Zone, and that works. It is you can totally use that and produce a deck that will do the thing that you want, but don't think that it has to be that way. Once you get to a point where you have some understanding of, you know, what you want to do, what cards are available, then you don't have to go, all right, well, I need 10 of X, I need 15 of Y, you know, I need like 30 creatures base, something like that. Instead, think of, because cards of all different types now are the things that you want. You have solutions to problems in all different card types. I was going to go into a thing that was different, but I will wait until we've exhausted this.
Yeah, I think the thing about a rubric that is the weakest, that does hurt the most of using it, is it will lead you to not spread your wings enough as a builder. So what I mean by this is I have a Zyra deck that is like 30 plus removal spells. The thing is made to be control. Like, that is the deck. And if you stick to the simple rubric, you can never get to that deck. Like, that deck just, it breaks the rubric because it is, I was aware, I'm like, when I sat down, I was trying to reach something, a goal. It was, I wanted to have the feel of Jund Modern in my commander deck. And I could, if I follow the rubric, I would not end up there, because you're just not going to end up with something that feels that way through the rubric. If I go 10 ramp removal card draw, I'm just not going to end up there. And then I have to also understand my commander draws cards. Oh, now I can play less card draw in this deck because my commander draws cards. And everything this leads to, use the rubric maybe to start. Like, those are helpful.
Yes.
But I think you want to spread your wings as a deck builder, and you end up with the wild and crazy decks. Like, I am not a control player. Like, I do not like control. But the Zyra deck ended up accidentally being my control deck, and I'm happy with it. Like, I actually really like that deck, and I probably will never take it apart because I captured what I was looking for. I made a Jundam out commander.
Being a stinky bitch.
It is a stinky deck. I do not pull it out, and when I do, I always say, this is a control deck. I'm going to answer everything on the board. If you guys are good with that, I will play this.
Mm-hmm.
I love that deck so much.
Yeah. I think a good distinction here for what we are discussing, if this is like your first time building a deck, this is probably not where to start. Take a rubric, follow it to a T. You have built your first deck. Great. After you have like played some games, you built like a handful of decks, and now you're like, okay, but like these are not necessarily satisfying to me. Like, how do I start understanding how I build a deck? That is what this should be.
The statistics on YouTube, everyone was watching Green 2 said, if this is your first deck, don't use this, and then nobody's watching anymore. This is the graph is bam.
I'm going to go a step further. I think if you're trying to make your first commander deck, don't even use the templates. I think your first like 5 to 10 decks should be you riffing on a net deck.
Yeah, precon or something.
Yeah, like riff on a precon. If your friend has a deck you think is cool, like take the deck, and then, as Veggie said, this is all about self-expression. I'm also sorry, I wanted to frame it in the most exaggeratory way possible. So I was about to be like, I'm a big fan of plagiarism.
Yeah.
But like because with TikTok and trends and all that,
mm-hmm.
when you look at somebody else's creative work, and if you try to execute it, there will be a point at which you find something you think they should have done differently. And that is your creative spirit trying to communicate. And that same thing happens when you look at commander decks. If you look at a friend's deck you think is cool, there will be some card in there you go like, oh, that's not as cool as this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at like Rottenmouth Viper or something. And so a lot of people will shame net decking, and I am a massive, massive fan of it, as long as you allow yourself to make a couple edits. You don't have to make a ton. Like, having a deck that is fucking, home brewed with your grandma's yeast starter, I'm not fucking clapping about it, man. It might be a cool deck still. Like, I'm not angry at that, but be more willing to net deck when you're first starting out. Please. The machinery is not that complicated, but it's just complicated enough you're going to jam your finger if you try to do it from scratch the moment you start playing.
I actually think, even without the thought of having to like do any tweaking, if you just want a net deck, you just should. And it should be, there is a lot of the wanting to be a hipster in Magic, where we just want to play the different thing. And I do that. I'm not going to pretend like I am immune to wanting to be the hipster. I want to put in that card that's like in 1% of decks. That'll make you, they're less than that. It's got to be in less than 1%. 1% is way too much for me. But you want to be the person who wins with that cool card. That is all great. And I love doing that. So if you want to if you don't want to be the hipster and you want to go take 100 cards offline and play that exact deck and that brings you joy, do it, because that is perfectly reasonable. Who cares if you play the a website we are going to talk about in this episode because it's hard not to is edhrec.com, which gives the top played cards of decks. If you take the top 100 cards from there and build a deck, more power to you. I support it. Just do it. I think there is too much hate on the just making a deck off of EDHREC.
I only don't because that deck will not work unless it's Simic. There's no hate to the creative side of it, but if you take once you get beyond like 30 cards from EDHREC, you are like a Full Metal Alchemist Chimera. Like you do begin to lose functionality. And so you should limit yourself for the purposes of the deck working. Like you can absolutely get some synergy packages off EDHREC and then flesh them out. But dear God, do not get all 99.
So something you can do with EDHREC is they have a function to just make the 100 card average of all decks. And that'll usually function pretty well because they will have the right land counts and generally the right counts because they take.
All right, Jonathan Stompy.
I'm not saying that.
Right.
I am not trying to say that the most fun you could have is by stealing a deck off of EDHREC, but I am saying it is a totally viable way to go, and you should feel zero shame from all the hipsters like me who are going to be like, "Ugh, you're not even playing any really cool cards."
Yeah, there are a lot of skills to learn in Magic the Gathering, and you don't have to learn them all at the same time. Sometimes you're just like, I want a deck so I can learn the other skills of Magic. And something that somebody else has built will be fine. It's the same as like, coming from more of an acting background. Oh, am I performing this monologue? But somebody else has already done it. That's terrible then. No, you like
Shakespeare's going to fucking get you.
Right. That's the whole thing. You are expressing yourself through this deck that sure maybe somebody else built, but you are now playing it the way that you play it.
And you made a choice still. You still actively went online, like in this case, and you picked out the commander you thought was the most interesting. That is a big choice, and you are expressing yourself in that way, even though it's somebody else's thing. I mean, self-expression through other people's art is very common. I mean, do you listen to music? Do you tell people how cool the music you listen to is? That's the same exact thing.
Well, and also if you start by playing a deck you know to be good, it will help give you an intuitive feel for how good decks play. Like you will get expectations around how much agency do I have? How big of a threat do I present? And you can carry that with you when you try to make your own malformed baby for the first time.
I have something that kind of puts us back onto actually building decks.
Perfect.
So you've got a direction that you're going. You know the thing that you want to do. It is commander, most likely that has to do with playing the card in your command zone. So another way that you can start to structure your deck is figure out when do you want to cast your commander in a game and what needs to happen up to that point and after that point. So for example, let's take, I don't know, give me a commander.
Henzi.
I think fuck Henzi. A great one would be Achik from Aether Drift.
Okay, sure. That is...
They are a 6-mana bug. When they enter, you make a 1/1 for every creature card in your graveyard. Okay, I think they have another line of text that is dog shit. That is the line of text that is relevant.
So let's go with that. So, for instance, the clear thing is we want to have some things in the graveyard. We want to have creatures in the graveyard so that when we play this, it makes a bunch of bugs. Probably. So let's start with the point where we cast a commander. So we've got a graveyard full of stuff, and we have 6 mana to play the commander. So the things that we need to do before that are fill up the graveyard. So we are looking for cheaper spells or cheaper effects that are putting cards into the graveyard, and we need we need enough of them in the deck so that you've seen at least a few before you've got 6 mana. That's another way to approach this. Okay, what do we do afterward? Because our commander, once we've played it, has created a little bug army for us. That is not winning the game. So now, okay, what do we need to do after the commander has been cast? Maybe it's I need some stuff to pump up my creatures to turn them into a lethal threat. Or maybe it's, okay, I need something to sacrifice my bugs to make to do another thing. You figure out what the thing is that you do after the commander, and now you're like, all right, I have some mana to spend on these effects. Maybe those can be a little bit more expensive. And I don't need as many of them because the game has gone on for more turns. I've had more time to find these cards. So you're like, great. What we've started now is we need more small effects to fill the graveyard. We need some, but less things that allow us to win the game with a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, and I think one of the simplest questions you can ask yourself is, does it behoove me, thank you, app, to cast my commander as fast as possible or not? Because some commanders, it is in your best interest to get them in play as quickly as you can.
Mm-hmm.
This is typically the case for,
Henzi.
Yeah, Henzi really wants to come down quickly. Niv Mizzet decks, right? You want to have mana sources to get those 6 pips early. Apchik is an example of you don't want to play them as fast as possible. You have to there is some hurdle you must overcome before you cast them to make casting them good. And that is often one of the first questions I will ask myself when I'm trying to figure out my priorities is, does this commander want to be played immediately? Or is there some other more nebulous goal, more nefarious goal I must achieve before casting them?
Man, bonus points.
Up to the $7 a month membership.
Yes, your commander is either an engine, Henzi, a win con, Niv, or value, Atchik.
Or nothing, Patrick Starr.
Yeah, goddamn.
They did him dirty.
Well, okay. To Patrick Starr, you're gonna build a deck with him. You assume if you have some sort of direction you can go, figure out what he is. Is he great? He's the world's worst mid-game value. I've put him onto the board, and now I've unlocked my Commander Matters cards. Or is he a win con? Are you doing Voltron Patrick?
We're talking about a 6 mana 6/5 with no abilities, folks. By the way, that's what Patrick Starr is.
I think it's worse than that. I think
it's a 7 mana.
It's a 7 mana 6/5. Yeah. So,
but yes, that is the way to that is a way that I focus on. At what point do I want to cast the commander, and then what needs to happen before and after. Have more and cheaper before things. Have less and more expensive after things.
Yeah. You've really elaborated on the point that I started with, which is how I build decks. What does the commander do? And I completely focus on that when I build. Now, you don't have to build around the commander as hard as I go. My philosophy is, this is commander. I have this card of a game, and I want this deck to do whatever it is that this commander does. And I don't like deviating that much. I get sometimes I put in some stapley cards, I'll put in a beast with him, which no synergy there in most decks, but it's I'll put it in because I feel like I need an answer or two. But if I can, which my Henji deck does, go 100% onto game plan, I will, because I think that is the most, this is chasing my highest enthusiasm. That is the most fun decks to me. When this deck is 100% on a gameplay, that deck has an Umori companion that makes everything a creature. So it's either ramp it into Henzi, or it's a creature getting blitzed out with Henzi. And that is 100% of the deck. And that's an extreme. You don't have to push your deck to those limits. But I find it to be more fun. And when people bring those decks, I tend to have more fun playing with them, because it's man, what a silly, Maul loves the silly.
I do think there's some important nuance there, because there are cases where you are commander maxing and then the deck fucking falls apart when the commander gets removed. Where in cases like Henzi, right, if it's a deck of big dipshits, Henzi can die and you might not be blitzing them anymore, but you're still going to play big dipshits. So I think that also follows through with your Maelstrom Wanderer deck, right? Maybe I don't get to Cascade 4 times, but everything in the deck is a big ol' and I've seen a lot big ol' asshole, and I've seen a lot of people build decks where their commander is not only the focus but the linchpin, and that is typically the line for me where In casual, I think that whole thing we talked about in a previous episode that definitely wasn't an hour ago, about how if your deck folds to a type of interaction, that's okay because we're playing bad magic. I think once your deck folds to somebody shot my very scary commander one time, I mean, we got to have a talk about what to expect when you get in the mosh pit, Terry.
Yeah, you should not, or you can. Well, you can, but you probably shouldn't go and 100% rely on your commander. I think that in the deck building process, you need to look at how much do you rely on your commander. And now if that's really, really high, cool, whatever. Decks are allowed to do that. You need a backup plan then. We just talked about this yesterday. A couple weeks ago at this point, but we were building we were working on a Kalia deck. And we sat there and we're like, well, here's the issue.
If we Kalia as the commander.
Well, here's the issue. Everything costs 1 million mana, and if we don't have Kalia, then we don't get to do our thing. So we're immediately like, how can we mimic our commander? And like, I think in the decks where you are really linchpinning your commander, how do you mimic it? And we came up with things like, what was it? Sneak attack. It's where you get to mimic the thing your commander is already doing and put it into the deck. And that is what you should try and do in those cases, where if you are linchpinned on your commander, it's like, that is what I'm stuck on. Like, my commander is the center and sometimes it doesn't function. Can I find that somewhere else? Sometimes the answer is no. And then I would suggest maybe diversifying your deck a little. But a lot of times the answer is also yes. And you can just get that sort of effect somewhere else.
Yeah, you have to think about when do I need my commander to exist? Because at some point you are going to get to have it on the board. And then say it's something, let's say it's Lotho. I like that card. You could play a Lotho deck. You're going to be able to play it on turn 2. And people are probably not going to kill that thing. Because, sure, it's going to get you some value. You're going to make some extra treasures. But somebody will likely not find it worth it to, on turn 2, kill your thing that is only making you treasures. So you probably have some time while that exists on the board, and you're like, great, I don't need to, I don't have to plan to have to protect this thing. It will just do what I want. And if it dies, darn, I lose out on some value, but my deck is just saying, hey, if I get some extra value, we'll be good. If you look at something else that is entirely based around the commander being on the board and doing its thing, think about how long you have to do that. Let's say Voja. Voja, a command that everybody loves. As soon as this thing gets on the board, everybody goes, great. We need to make this go away
bang, bang.
As soon as possible. So figure out, if I have this for one little moment, does my deck work? Oftentimes the answer is yes for that. But the rest of your deck, as you're building it, you should take into account, I'm going to play this, maybe get one swing out of it, and people are going to kill it. What happens then? Because if you only build the deck in a way where it's like, okay, this is going to be so good, this is going to be so powerful as long as my commander is on the board, but the commander is the thing that makes it good, then you have to figure out what does the deck do when it's not there.
This is my commander, Shitlord Prime. Why don't you hang out with him in the hot tub? And I do think that's the part where experience takes over. Like, there's the comment I made about just being able to observe what your own deck is doing when it comes to anticipating how threatening other people are going to find you, how quickly people are going to jump the gun on removing your commander. Mm-hmm. That is something that comes with time, and maybe looking at how popular your commander is on EDH. The more popular it is, bang, 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 bang.
But I think even you can assess this yourself with totally new cards. Even like, let's say there's no EDH rec data at all. You've never played with it. Nobody's ever played with the card. Look at the context of your commander in your deck. Is it the best card in your deck? Does your deck function without the commander? Because if either of those things are true, build your deck assuming that everybody knows that. If the deck does not function without the commander, at some point somebody's going to go, oh, that thing's giving your whole team a +10 boost. But if I kill it, then you only have 1/1s. Great, kill it. And so build your deck assuming that your opponents are competent enough to assess how important your commander is to your deck.
Yeah, we are all unique and beautiful snowflakes, but also you have probably not cracked the code on some unique synergy. If you figured it out at a glance, other people will also, and then bang, bang.
We have done a lot of bangs on this episode. We are shooting commanders nonstop for
They deserve it. My VV deck, when I was goldfishing it, I was like, oh, if I play VV and I do not have a counterspell I can cast as soon as VV makes it off the stack, this goldfish is a failure.
Yes.
Because bang, bang.
Yeah. See, and that's another point of, as you're building your deck, figure out when do you want to cast your commander. VV is not I'll cast this on 3, go pass. It's I'm casting it. It's at the point where I have at least one way to protect it and mana available. So you're planning to have enough and cheap enough interaction that you have that in your hand and ready to cast by the time you play VV on 4 or 5.
So we can get into our next thing, which is sticking to still deck building, obviously, because that's the episode, but mana curve, which is a very hard thing to see until you lay out your deck, because you don't unless you are using an online deck building website, nothing is telling you what your mana curve is.
Well, I just had the realization I've never built a deck outside of an online deck builder. And so when you were saying that, I was like, what the fuck is Joe talking?
It is very common to nowadays just build online. Like that is the way most people put decks together and then gather the cards. But there are still those deck builders out there who only build with what they have. And that is a completely different experience. But mana curve, it is literally is a good thing if you are one of those builders to lay it out. Put your cards in piles of this costs 1, this costs 2, this costs 3, this costs 4, and look at what it looks like. It should look like a bell curve. That's the idea. Because you want a few small things of Mold. I gotta stop looking at you because it makes me interrupt myself.
We're not cavemen. We have technology. I will go so far as to say, unless specifically building without an online helper makes you happy because because of the process, just don't ever do that. Use Moxfield. It makes things so much easier. Even if you're building, you're like, I'm not getting any new cards for this deck. Grab the pile of things that you're like, I know for sure these are going in. Put them into your Moxfield list, and then go, all right, great. Thanks, math. I'm missing a bunch of 2-drops. That I should now go through my pile of cards that I have and see what fills that slot.
Yeah, it gives you so much information. Like you said, it tells you the number of 2-drops in your deck. It also tells you the number of pips you have in your deck.
Yep.
A percentage of what those pips are. That is not something you want to do in person. Nobody wants to pull out their deck and count how many white pips are in the goddamn deck. That is a miserable experience. But Moxfield will just do it for you without even thinking, because we have technology. It's powerful.
I'm also, just as a quick aside, if there is any card in your deck that is competing with the mana cost of your commander, that better be the rawest motherfucking spell in this game, or there better be a clear reason you would never cast it at that mana value. That's probably the number one mistake I see with casual decks, is they fill it with funny cards that happen to compete with when they want to cast their commander in a deck that wants to cast their commander quickly. If you don't want to cast your commander as quickly as possible, great reason to have other stuff at that curve. But without getting too deep into it, because we don't have 5 hours, I disagree heavily with bell curve mana curves. I think the curve, but I think a lot of decks have mana curves that just disrespect when they have very obvious plans of turn 1, I always want to do this. Turn 2, I always want to do this. Turn 3, I always want to do this. Turn 6, I hope that I'm able to do this. And I think I don't think this will be a lukewarm take. I just don't think you should be aiming for a bell curve or feeling like the curve needs to change because it doesn't fit a bell curve if the thesis of your deck supports why it looks like that. And the most common thing I see for that is like reanimator decks or graveyard decks. Those are decks where I'm typically like, why the fuck do you have anything in the middle? You either have a, like, other than the like solid just best cards in the game, I'm like, you have setup spells and you have big shit lords. What the hell is anything else in here?
To step in, what Mald is saying, yes, you do not always need a bell curve. There is many different things. I think I was going to the generalization that we of a typical
Dinosaur deck?
Not even a typical dinosaur deck. A typical deck is a bell curve is the idea, is more of an ideal way to go, because you don't want a ton of big things. You also don't want a ton of things that have very little impact on your low end. But Commander is also a very powerful format where 1-drops are really, really good. Sometimes your deck might just have 31 drops because it works really well with what your deck wants to do. So the curve will look different. I was overgeneralizing. That said, you should, if your commander costs 3 mana and you always plan on playing it on 3, still play 3-drops. 3-drops, I don't think that you should start cutting more 3-drops just because in general you're going to be playing your commander on 3. I think you should just include the cards. If the card is right for the deck and synergizes with the deck, include it. Don't go, oh, it's a 3-drop, I should cut it because of my commander.
I think that's I don't think that's like the essence of it.
Scarecrow's dead as fuck, by the way, though.
Get the fuck. I cannot even. Mald, like literally, somebody go back. Mald said this. I did not beat a Scarecrow.
So what I said was, unless they are good as shit, which I think is covered by if they're perfect for the deck. But secondly, we get back into this thing of when you talked about mimicking your commander if you don't have that effect. If your commander's a 3-drop and there's some great 3-drop, like a great example for Henzi of a 3-drop I wouldn't cut is Gwenna. This is a repeatable mana dork, crazy, one of the best cards in the deck. Most other effects, you can get a better effect at higher mana values. And so more of what I'm speaking to is, okay, if you're going to tap out with 3 mana for your commander and your deck is not in the business of always holding up a ton of mana, you're usually better off just finding a more expensive and more powerful version of the effect to dump after you have acquired commander mana.
What's really funny is Henzi is a terrible example because Henzi specifically wants 4-drops anyway. He's already pushing you to do that. So it's just like, it's just a really bad example.
Right, but the only important part of that example is Gwenna being the same mana value as Henzi and being one you should absolutely include. I'm not including that for everything else should be 4-drops. I'm only speaking to that for there are plenty of things that do compete where they are so good that they pass muster. But things that are just like okay to like a light thumbs up, you can almost, like, the game is so big now, you can almost always find a more powerful effect at 4 mana or 5 mana. And that's the mana you're going to have after you've gotten past your commander to begin.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say jam, like say your commander is a 3-mana commander. It's not jam a ton of more 3-drops in there. But there's also just the situations where maybe playing your commander on a lot of decks isn't right on 3, and having a 3-drop to play is not every deck just wants to jam its commander.
But that's what I said. I said unless you don't want to play your commander as soon as possible. Like the heart of it is literally just don't outcompete your commander in the tempo of your deck. And the tempo of your deck is often closely related to mana, but if you have a reason to not play your commander...
Okay, so to respond how I meant to respond...
Also, what if you don't want to play your commander on 3?
Well, right. Now, okay, that changes my argument totally. Like, if you don't want to play your commander on 3, or like, God, if they ever printed a single card that was good and had the same mana value as your commander,
what if the card is really good for the deck?
Fuck, man. I don't know. I just don't know.
This is why they're gonna come and I don't add anything.
All right, please, Joe. The next Scarecrow is prepared for you. Savage him.
I think it is important to not to overload in like a 3-drop slot of a 3-thing commander, but not in. It doesn't necessarily have to be necessarily great, but I also want to have some 3-drops because not every commander is perfectly game. Not every commander game is perfectly going to play out where playing out the commander on 3 is right. It's very rare that like always playing out like a certain 3-mana commander is always the right play at that time. When you sometimes have setup, like it might be better to just go like, oh, okay, but if I set up with this, I can then play Gwenna here, which will give me the mana, and the next turn I'll have enough mana to play Henzi and blitz something. So having those things isn't always competing with your commander. It can add to your commander, and it can be the right thing. And maybe that just fits into this is strong enough in the deck, and maybe it is just a synergy thing. But I don't think I've ever avoided a card.
I think that is a deck narrative question rather than a CMC question. Like if there are Henzi in particular, which again, I think we're losing a lot of the argument in the specifics of the commander. But like if whether you want to play your commander as quickly as possible is a question that is decided by the game state in casual, I think you don't have a good enough idea of the thesis of your deck, quite frankly. Outside of a few specific examples of hyper synergy that just so happen to coexist with the same CMC, I think that is you don't have a clear enough game plan if that's in question, and it's a low CMC commander.
There's just enough commanders that like you can add to what they will be able to do when they come down, and the thing happens to line up on their thing. So it's like this 4-drop will make my commander be better when it comes down. There's a lot of cards like that, and I feel like I'm not gonna, let's say there's
mistakes. Yeah, those cards exist.
Let's just say there's like that we have a 3-mana commander that hypothetically works with +1/+1 counters. Like, and then you can just start, there's like a bunch of 3-drops that also will make my commander be a little bit better. I wouldn't avoid those cards.
Yeah, I would. There's 1-drops, there's 2-drops, there's 4-drops.
But I'm saying if these are I don't feel the need to avoid them at all. Like I don't think I change my curve at all around my commander personally. Unless it's a deck building. Like Henzi's stuff costs way more, but that's because Henzi says play bigger things. But I won't avoid like 4-drops because I have a 4-drop commander.
All right, let me be the tiebreaker here. Joe is wrong.
Thank you. I mean, I will leave it at like empirically, and I urge you to try this as well. As soon as I started giving myself a really high bar to compete with my commander's CMC and place in my curve, all of my decks felt way better. Just try it yourself. I will not belabor this point intellectually anymore.
Now, there's a lot of nuance to this, but this is the internet, so we're not going to worry about that. Joe's wrong. If you have a deck where a good play is playing your commander on curve, then cut cards at that slot. Oftentimes, the cards that you're cutting would be best if you had played them at that time, and cut those first. Like if your commander is 3 mana, and it is a good play to play it as soon as you have 3 mana, then cut like Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. Cut things especially that you're like, well, yeah, this card is best when I've played it on curve. Cut those. We're not going through and cutting like, Tavari's Protection is 3 mana, but my commander is 3. Yeah, because you're not playing that card on 3, but you should actively be cutting things that share the same spot as when you want to cast your commander, because you will have that available. We're also for the nuance that we don't care about, you're not cutting everything at that slot. If you're just saying, I am very happy to have less of these cards because oftentimes I will have my best play will be play my commander at this point.
I have found in my deck building experiences that the game I want to play is often not, no matter what commander I am building, 100% jam. And I just keep thinking of Henzi because it is fucking killing my mind, because Henzi is the one example of a commander where I'm like, I want to jam this as soon as possible every single time. But like almost every other deck I've built, and I've built a ton, I sometimes don't just want to jam my commander into the board. Like I want to set up a board, and sometimes a lot of 4-drops do that. So I don't find myself with the necessity of, again, there is a lot of nuance here.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're including the right cards in your deck, like, and you are building a good deck, do not avoid a card because it is the CMC of your commander. And like there again, it is too complex to go into all the details of, but I am just not avoiding them.
Yeah, let me clarify. Joe is wrong.
I am also not saying overload that slot. Like, I am not saying put 15 4-drops in your 4-drop commander deck. I am just saying I wouldn't avoid them. Like, that's the main thing. It's just like, if there is a card where I'm like, this is right for the deck, I'm not going to ever be like, oh, I already have 11 4-drops.
To be clear, I think you made a totally different argument as soon as you said your opening statement. Well, oftentimes I feel like I don't want to cast my commander on curve. Great, then that's not the decks we're talking about.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I am saying is it's not that. It's that I find that almost all commanders, even Henzi at times, there is times when it doesn't want to be cast because you're playing the right cards in your deck and the 3-drop can replace it. And I guess maybe we are just pushing to. I think we might just all be in the same page.
What if we just erase Henzi from your brain? How much does this? Because Henzi is a pretty like perfunctory guy. Because like another example is that you might actually find more obstreperous is in my VV deck. I skip totally mana value 5. And I skip as much as possible mana value 4, because in the narrative of that deck, I'm going, I want to jam VV as quickly as possible with low CMC protection. This will give me enough VV mana that I will always untap with enough mana to just start slamming fucking 6 mana and above bombs onto the table.
So the reason I say that I was actually saying that I think we're actually just all on the same page is I may just only be talking about really good cards in the deck ultimately, because maybe that is the thing. Maybe I am so focused on like my deck building thought process and how I do it that in general, besides when I'm putting in the fun cards, I put the cards that I feel, because I'm a pretty good deck builder, in the deck, and they're usually right. And so I don't tend to avoid them because they're my commander's mana cost. And I just find that almost no commander always wants to come down in their slot. Always. Like it is a rare thing that a commander always wants to come down, so I will not avoid their slot.
Yeah, I think everybody is picking their own like extremes and not coming to the compromise here. There is not a commander that always wants to come down in a certain slot, but there are lots of commanders that often this is a really good play. And so in that case, you just adjust the odds of your deck. You're saying, oh, would I have had, would I have had like 8 4-drops in this deck, but my commander is a real good play on 4. Great, I'm going to cut to 4. That way, in the occasional game where it's not the best play to do it on 4, I might have other options, or I'm okay with being wasting a mana on that one because somebody was like, I have removal. If you play it, I'll kill it.
Okay, I think something I missed is also the less my commander costs, the less likely I am to not to want to avoid those spells. Like, I don't want to avoid 2-drops. You want a lot of 2-drops. I still want a lot of 2. I don't care if my commander costs 2. I'd like 1 and 2 is just like, I feel like I don't want to avoid those, because the ability of a 1 and 2 mana spells, again, when you're playing the right spells in your deck, the ability to double spell later in the game is incredibly powerful. And I don't want to give that up or push that away in the fact that, oh, my commander's coming down in 2, I don't need 2-drops. I still want to play the good 2-drop.
I still want to play the good 2-drops, but I'm certainly cutting back the number of 2-drops for my compared to my average.
See, this is where the disagreement. I just disagree with that. I do not think at that point you do 2-drops, 1 and 2-drops. I am going to say 100%. I am not going to change the number I play, even if my commander costs 2, because the ability to double spell, the 1 and 2-drops are the most important things to that. And the lower the mana cost. So I really don't think if you are playing a 2-mana commander, you should cut any of your 2-drops. Honest. If your deck is built in a certain way, I honestly believe that.
This is perfect because my 2 CMC commander is Thunder Junction Satoru Umezawa. The deck has not a single 2-drop. And it's fucking perfect.
That is
because
one of the
it.
things that makes this, that I honestly believe makes our our podcast very interesting.
Yes.
We do come from very different perspectives of deck building.
Yeah,
I come
there's
from the
like
right
very
one.
correct, somewhat correct, and wrong.
Totally wrong all the time.
I'm 100%. I am not like legit. Who is you said Umezawa?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 100%. If I built Umezawa, I'm not avoiding 2 drops. Just it's not something I'm going to do at all. I think there is much more argument as you go up the curve for that to start excluding them. But I think 1 and 2 is like I am hard. Don't avoid the cards that are right for your deck in 2 drops.
You cut your own self off not at the right place there.
What did I do?
I am hard. You know what? I'm gonna
Veggie, you know how hard you are to edit? You love the thought.
Yes.
Thought.
Mm-hmm.
Thought. Just over that. It is so hard to edit without making it like it's easy for podcasts. Like I can make it sound good for podcasts, but then in the video it's like here's Veggie talking.
Good.
But I am not as good at you as at cutting myself off.
Let me help you out a little bit here. You are
Wrong.
not correct. Oh, wait. Oh, I should have moved position more.
Yeah, you should have zoomed over here. Yeah. And I think in the ultimate scheme of things, because Commander is a format of absolute wonky variance, it is almost hard to have a hard yes or no, like on any question that you are asking. So it's just, am I right? Am I wrong? No, the answer is always probably somewhere in the middle, right? It's always like when we say things, it's almost it's don't let the expression. I think when we have a conversation here and we are on the 2 extreme sides, it is probably never the extreme, and I can say that it's probably never the extreme to not cut any 2 drops, but it is definitely also wrong to play no 2 drops in your deck. That's just wrong. I'm telling you.
Well, there's like 2 drop removal, but those don't exist as a 2 drop in my head because of what Veggie's built. Again, straw man, dead on the floor. I will call an ambulance for him later, but we've like previously belabored the point of it's not competing with my commander because the intent is never on turn 2, I'm going to rip a fucking counter spell.
You won't play you wouldn't play a talisman if your commander costs 2.
Fuck no.
I just see hard disagree. Absolute 100% disagree that I think that is wrong.
I do not. And that deck fucking, it hums. And like, I think Satoru is the one where I took it the absolute furthest, because in every other deck, it's not a hard no. It's just I have a higher degree of suspicion. Like in Henzi, absolutely I'm playing Gwenna. Am I playing Cultivate? Absolutely the fuck not. It's Sky Shroud Claim instead, because I would rather spend 4 mana.
You guys keep bringing up Cultivate. To be fair, people should be playing less Cultivate. That card's just okay.
I mean, fine. Any 3-drop whose name is not Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia. I'm not playing it, and I'm playing, even if it's not Henzi game plan, like if it was ramp, I'm playing Sky Shroud Claim instead, because it's a better effect for more mana, and at 3 mana, it's always the guy. It's always the little gremlin. And as we've said, I agree that not every deck 100% of the time is always jamming. I think a lot of the decks know whether they tend towards jamming early or tend towards waiting. And if you tend towards jamming early, that's when I start being suspicious of anything that would have me wait. Because it just introduces more situations where you have to quibble. And I have never seen 2 2-drops that could not become unemployed in the face of a 4-drop.
I also, so just to move the mana curve along here before we argue even more here.
Fist fight.
So when your commander costs 3 and 4, I think that your 1 and 2 drops do significantly go up, because you want to often play things that ramp into it. For example, we'll go to, I'll pull off the top of my Henzi. You guys heard of it?
It's like Maelstrom Wander.
So when your commander costs 3 and you are in green, you should maximize your 1-drop dorks that can push you to play your commander on 3. So,
but what if the 2-drop is good, Joe?
but
what if my 2-drop is aura shards?
So like a curve is going to look much, much different and not necessarily meet the bell curve, because the 1s and 2s just kind of jump out here in a weird way that is not necessarily normal of most decks because you want to cast your commander on curve. 4-mana commanders, Talismans are perfect. Like you want every 2-mana rock in your 4-mana commander deck, shove it in because you want to get that 4 as soon as you can so you can play your commander sooner generally.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think it was going to be? Were we going to say anything about it?
I wasn't. I was hoping that even if you agree, you could add something.
I'm just distracted by all the straw on the floor of the slaughterhouse.
I wasn't beating up no goddamn straw man. I was taking the man at his word, and then the words didn't mean what they meant.
And then the added words in your own head.
No.
And the words you didn't listen to that I had said.
No, that was last episode. I listened. I listened to that whole straw man. No, I Freudian slipped you. Apparently, I am straw man.
Got him.
I listened to.
Bang.
I really did listen to everything Bald said, and I honestly believed I was making earnest arguments. If he thinks I'm shooting a straw man, maybe it's because his arguments need to be straw men because they're not real.
Bang. Let me know. Hey, let me know. Comment section. Bang. I'm just making shit up every day.
Is there anything else that you have about mana curves?
I have a tangent off of mana curves, which is don't be afraid to put like big dumb shitheads in your deck. They're fun. Don't be afraid of like 8, 9, 10.
8.
Don't have a ton. Jesus God, don't have a ton.
Okay. Oh, you have something about mana curves? Go ahead.
Well, I with this, I will recognize this is one of my weaknesses. Is I will not. I will stray a little bit more away from like bigger spells. Just something like but counterspell exists. But I think I'm okay with playing like these 2/4 drops on the same turn as opposed to this 8. But also those cards are often really fun. And you should, and I agree, you should be playing them. Don't stray away from them. They resolve and do the thing more often than you think.
Yeah, and on top of that, if you are a newer deck builder, I think one of the best ways to put win cons is big things. Mm-hmm. They are the biggest over the top, easiest thing that you can see. It's like Avenger of Zendikar at 7. I can see exactly how that leads me to a win. Whereas combining 3 or 4 spells is a more difficult thing to conceive and understand. But you can just throw in big stompy. It's like
I could just play 3 2-drops though.
It's playing 3. You can. When you have built the right deck and you have the right synergies, those 3 2-drops will just win you the game. But when you're a less good deck builder, it's just easier to go Avenger of Zendikar. I win, okay, because the card is so silly and good. And like that is a good way to overcome a little bit of like the handicap you will have when you are a new deck builder. So I think it is good to just throw a couple big baddies in your deck. I think for moving on, we can talk about. We talked about not doing specific numbers, but ramp removal and card draw. How important is it to every deck? You can pick one and start, but like I find that I want 8+ of each of these and all of my decks, and then I go from there. There are examples of wanting to go lower, obviously, but I find that 8+ is like 8 is my starting point for these numbers, and then I will go up from there. So 8 to 15. It's kind of like Malt's 10 to 15, but this is being more specific on these things. These are when talked about by other commander shows and rubrics. These are cards that you genuinely will just get a number for. Generally, not genuinely, but generally you will just get a number for these. And it is good to have a number, but I think that you have to fluctuate from that number when the deck suits it. Something like, for example, Deadpool comes in and removes something. You don't need as much creature removal in that deck. You can be lower on creature removal because your commander is creature removal.
Where do I want to start with this?
I'm not wrong here. Don't just say I'm wrong. I already know you want to.
Joe's wrong.
I'll start with a big one. I think you should drop the amount of removal that is average. Because it sounds like you said like what 8 to 15. It sounds like you're around the same range.
No, that's actually what I changed. That one either goes way higher or way lower, depending on if I think me casting my best spell every turn makes me the biggest problem. Like there is a deck that I helped Z build that's actually quite low on removal because because it's a Choco deck, so it's really good at card selection. it has a few pieces of removal that are all crushingly one-sided. And I'm like, that's enough. Because I get one of these, you blow out everybody else at the table. You don't need to be like swords to plowshares sniping people. You need a 1-drop bird to set up Choco. And so I would say removal for me fluctuates heavily.
Okay.
VV's what? Yeah. So
here's why I say this. And I say this for everyone. Doesn't matter if you are a new deck builder, a new deck builder, or an experienced one. Cut down on the amount of removal interaction that you have. Because if you're a newer player, you get to experience more cards for you. Instead of being like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should hold up my mana for this removal spell. You're just like, oh, I don't have it, but I have this cool thing that I like to play, and you'll learn more about cards, about what you like. Oh, I played that card, it was a really good time. Great, cool, excellent. As you become a more experienced player and more experienced deck builder, compensate for your lack of removal with your own gameplay. I think having a big old removal package is more of a crutch than people realize. A lot of the solutions to your problems can also, you can solve a lot of your problems by the way that you play the game, as opposed to just going, kill it. And that's more slots for fun stuff.
So yeah, 8 is my minimum, is where I start. And I tend to, usually my decks go up to like 11 is where I usually stop. And obviously I mentioned Zyra, which is all removal. Like that is an outlier. But I find that these are the right amount. And we have talked about how playing interaction is part of the thing that makes Magic so good and fun. And I feel like in the range of the 8 to 11 that I have been playing, I have not felt like I have too much of it, like at any point. And I have not felt like all I'm doing is removing everything fun that everyone's trying to do. I don't feel I need, I don't feel I need to cut back on removal in my own personal decks. Because I think that the game, in my experience, the games I play, there just hasn't been the experience of feeling like I'm not doing my thing also. But I also feel like that comes down to, I also have enough card draw to make sure I am compensating, because if I am having a heavy removal draw, there tends to be some card draw in there to let me go through and past it to get to more of my game plan. There will be games when you play your, let's just say 11 removal spells, and you will draw 4 removal spells and be like, ooh, this does nothing of my game plan. That can happen sometimes, but I think those are rare enough that I'm not worried about that happening. And I think my counts, I think being in this 8 to 11 range has in general put me so I'm interacting and not just sitting there being a spectator, but also provided me the opportunity to do the things I'm doing for my deck and push forward.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not saying having the average amount of removal that whatever your average is bad at holding your deck back. But I am saying definitively that you will enjoy your games more and learn more about how to play the game if you cut back.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also kind of like how I talked about with the mana curve, understanding the narrative your deck or like the tempo your deck wants to run out at. My VV deck, very high on removal, because in all the gold fishing, I realized it's like turn 8, turn 9 before I present a threat. In bracket 2, that might be acceptable. I think this is bracket 3. Somebody's going to have tried to win. I don't know how, but I'm going to have needed to be able to stall the game somehow. And so I went up on removal instead of making the threats better because I love the Myojin. But I could have gone way lower on removal had I made the threats better. And that's kind of how the Choco deck goes. It doesn't need removal. It's outrunning you. You've got to fucking deal with me. Mm-hmm. And I think the same kind of goes if you were to do a deck like maybe Xenagos, where most of the curve outs of this deck, you should fear what I'm doing. I'm not quite afraid of what you're doing. And in those decks, yeah, removal goes way down. And I hold a similar position to you, but I typically amend it to my next most radical thing after Cut Soul Ring is Cut Swords to Plowshares. I have had tremendously more fun removing the amount of like efficient instant speed interaction for more things that just when I get involved, I am flipping all of your tables and keeping mine. I think this connects to my thoughts about board wipes, which is generally like we are fucking 5 years past ever putting in a board wipe that is just going to establish parity. All of your board wipes should be one-sided in some way. If they're not, there's not even you're playing Magic badly, you're missing out on fun that you could be having. And I think the same kind of goes for getting bigger, splashier removal. Like one of the things I'm on right now, Grasp of Fate, baby. Take
Yes.
something off everyone's board,
Yes.
mandate a response from other people. That is like once we're trying to play like serious, powerful Magic, you need efficient instant speed spells. Bracket 2, Bracket 3. The smile on your face when you hit a motherfucker with Council's Judgment. Sorcery speed, I tap half my mana to tell all 3 of you to go fuck yourselves. There is nothing better. And I run less removal because now all of my removal is I'm gonna handle multiple people.
Things about Council's Judgment and Grasp of Fate specifically. Both of those cards have a unique effect on the game. The voting aspect to start with Council's Judgment is an incredibly fun and cool thing. So when you cut something from your deck, like a generic, let's just say Swords to Plowshares in this case, you get not only like, you're not just playing the most efficient, best spell, you also add this voting aspect that involves the whole table. And now you've added an aspect of fun that can't be added with Swords to Plowshares. Like you still get to answer probably the same threat because most likely the threat assessment is very similar between you and your opponents. And maybe you even answer 2 because you get that tie vote. Ooh, you get to play the spicy little game. And then Grasp of Fate adds a fun thing where I think Grasp of Fate is bad. But, the coolness of letting your opponents get back their thing and have their big splashy play, or the politics of, wow, I really want back my giant thing, but I can't give Steve back his giant thing, is awesome. And all of that is why I would suggest those spells. And those are really, really cool. And when you can add spells to your deck, when you can cut something super generic that you could just throw in any deck for something that adds more fun, like players should play more Council's Judgment because it adds something unique that can't be gotten anywhere else.
So the tiniest little expansion on run less removal is it will make you a better Magic player. It will make you a much better Commander player for sure, because you will encounter more situations where you're like, I have a problem. Now I need to solve it in a way that is not just, okay, spend resource, kill that thing, because there are other solutions usually. And so you learn to use the cards in your deck in a way that is not typical to find that creative solution. You will find them and you will become a better player for those situations where, oh, all right, now I'm playing a deck with a bunch of removal, but this is a situation where it's been used. How do I solve this problem? And especially in a 4-player game, you come to more situations where you go, the table has a problem. Mm-hmm. The table has to deal with this one threat. And if I am just not the player that can do that, that forces my other opponents to spend their resources on removing the thing. I can just go, here's my hand. I don't have it. Do we lose or do you spend your resources?
And the other beautiful thing about running less removal is you run into less situations like the unlawful deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who has been returned to the U.S. to be indicted on trumped up charges of illegal trafficking. We'll see what happens with that. But we are getting some motherfucking due process in this country again, despite the fact that the Trump admin is trying to get the original case declared as moot because, hey, we brought him back. We stole a cookie from the cookie jar, but we put it back after 3 months in a forced labor prison. That's fine, right?
Yeah, we had it in our mouth for a while, but
it's soggy,
generally
it's falling
there.
apart. Yeah, it's like the Oreo that was dipped in milk way too long,
scarred forever, but we put it back.
Yeah,
and I think the last point I want to go into here for deck building is one of my favorite things for making your deck more fun. And this is something more for the more experienced deck builders. Restrict yourself. It is why it makes me a little sad that the companions are so busted and or just don't work half the time in Commander. It truly makes me sad because they force you into a restriction. I think Companion is a perfect Commander design, and I wish that it hadn't broken so much other stuff to make everyone hate it and we could get it back, because it forces you, if you want to play this card and get this extra card, to do something. I have 2 companion decks currently. I have a Karuga one and I have an Umori one. I am considering building others because they force you into a restriction for a cool reward. Like forcing yourself, but you don't need those to do it. You can just restrict yourself. My Karuga deck, which is restricted to being 3 CMC or more, I put an extra restriction on it because Maelstrom Wanderer is such a silly commander. He just does silly things and it's hard to make him fun. I put an extra one. I also only play permanents in that deck because he is such an over-the-top silly commander, and people just don't like playing against him. I've come through 4 iterations of that deck at this point that I've had to take apart, and finally I have one where people are like, "All right, that's silly enough. I accept it," and I am happy to be at that point. But restriction breeds creativity.
Yeah. Some other ways I like this. Joe is wrong, but I agree.
I can't even be right when I'm right.
Another easy way to add a restriction is, I like X, like I like mill. Sure. Build a mill deck in colors that are not good at it. Like find there are a billion commanders, and there's certainly one that does the thing that you like, but in colors that are not traditionally good at that thing. So then you have to find the cards that work for that, and you end up with a really interesting and fun deck.
I just did this with Cyan from it was mono white, and I was like, let me find all of the self-mill. I want a self-mill theme. And it's hard to do because it is a bad color for self-milling, but I got as much fun stuff as I could into the deck, and it made for a cool, interesting deck.
I'm going to disagree as calmly as I can.
Oh yeah, Joe's wrong.
You're both wrong. And this is mostly, God, I think I'm up to like 1,200 different decks that I have tried to look at and improve now. And so I will always see that Veggie is the strictly better Magic player than me, and probably Joe too, although we haven't put it to the test. I do believe that I have at least authority on my own experiences here. And with the saying restriction breeds creativity, I have consistently seen that fall flat when it is a strictly mechanical restriction. I think a lot of the best attempts at a gimmick that I have seen are when the restriction is at the intersection of a mechanical requirement and some type of vibes-based artsy decision. I think when you limit the restriction to some of the typical ones I see are, I'm doing this budget, I'm doing this at a rarity, I'm doing this in a specific color, I'm doing this with a companion, I'm doing this. The worst one by far is a creature type. Holy God, stop. But I have consistently seen it be not that they don't function, but I promise you they are 100 times more interesting to you than they are to other people, which is not inherently a bad thing. Your deck should be more interesting to you than it is to other people. But I think that the rumors of these decks being created, I think in many cases, the mechanical restriction will end up restricting you so much that the deck is auto-built based on how good you are at Scryfall searching. That is really my limited contention. I think there's plenty of restrictions where you do have enough room to still get self-expression. On balance, more of these decks become, I have put so many guardrails on. There is one exactly right path to walk unless I want half of my cards to say I spend 4 mana to blow my own dick off. And I do not like it.
I think that this goes back to what I said at the beginning. This is something to do when you are a good deck builder, I think. When you are very, very skilled at it. I think if you just start throwing restrictions on yourself, but you haven't mastered deck building yet, don't do that. Just actually get to the point where you are a very good deck builder. And now, because you are a good deck builder, you putting restraints on yourself, you put extra restraints on yourself. Like, you're so powerful, you can work out with more weight. I don't know. Does that work as an analogy? Probably. But like, it is basically just, it's putting on the anime, like, weighted clothing. It's like, it's like only, you shouldn't put on anime weighted clothing if you're an incredibly weak character. That would be terrible. But when you're a super strong character, it's fun to do that. It adds challenge, and it puts you, and sometimes it puts you more into an average deck building thing where it's like, my restricted deck is, my restricted 2s tend to be as good as the average player's just 2, because so it allows you to play it on a weird even playing field that can be harder to achieve without those restrictions. I found the analogy, by the way.
Oh, I'm with you somewhat. I think you may be a little biased because you see a lot of decks built by.
I see a lot of terrible fuck ass decks.
Thank you for.
Yeah. I got you.
I would never ever insult your audience, and I did not want to do so here.
I love you all, and we all love shitty bad Dudachaka decks.
You all make fuck ass decks.
Yeah, but yes, your restriction does need to be purposeful. Like, you don't want to just go, well, I'm gonna make Garuga companion goblins. I don't know, I just pulled them out of a hat. You're not gonna have a good time with that. But for instance, you're like, I'm gonna do Garuga Maelstrom Wanderer, because that is leaning into a thing that the deck already does. It already wants to have these big spells this big creatures to cascade into. It is also adding a drawback so that you're able to play this like at more casual tables, or to people like. So people don't just go, well, you're doing the scary thing. I either don't want to play against this, or I'm going to bring out my super powerful deck. You're like, no. But here's the restriction. So it changes where you're able to play it. Or yes, you should have a reason that you are doing this restriction that isn't just, but I will do a restriction. Yeah, I'm with that.
Flatly disagree. Disrespectfully, even. Maybe not even disagree. I just think that everything you wish to achieve with a restriction that is mechanical in nature is better achieved with a restriction that is vibe-based in nature, and you end up making all of the interesting decisions when you infringe on the mechanical restriction because it fits the vibe better. Like, I've only ever seen, or I've seen mostly, not only ever, I've seen plenty of instances where a mechanical restriction does work out, but most of the time, I think less interesting decisions get made because of mechanical restrictions. More interesting ones get made when you go, I want the deck to feel like this. Like how you wanted to capture the feel of Jund Modern in your insect deck, rather than, I don't know what mechanical restriction would constitute that, but yeah.
I mean, I just think that a feeling is hard to capture.
That's the fun.
Well, and it is fun a lot of the times, and that is a way to go. You shouldn't restrict yourself on every build. I just think that sometimes it is a really cool way. If you have built 100 decks, you have 100 commander decks, the next ones might just feel like it's boring as hell because you're just another deck. Like, any new commander might, like, even you might find a point where it's not even exciting to do, but this can revigorate building by making you think differently. Like, sometimes some players have a lot of trouble when they're building, not including the best cards. I find it hard not to play Swords to Plowshares in every deck. That is still a challenge that it's tough not to include. It's just a great Magic card. It's so efficient. It's so powerful. And I just love, and I love the card on top of it. Like, it also just, on top of being a great Magic card, hits home for me as like, yeah, that thing's sweet. But when you add in the restriction, I can't play it under certain circumstances. It's like, I now my white deck can't play the Swords to Plowshare. I have a reason, and it makes me it pushes you to some, especially for this is extra for the players who want to compete. We have players on Decked Out who they want to play as efficiently as they can, and they want to do the thing as efficiently as they can, and that is a fair way to go. So a restriction can put you into a mindset where it's like, I am going to still push myself in deck building as hard as I can, but I can't include 1-mana instants. Like, that's the terrible example, but something like that will push you into both being creative and keeping you in the lower power levels where maybe you want to be, but it's hard for you as a deck builder to be.
I can intellectually agree with that. I just cannot wrap my mind around the idea of feeling that way. And so I will recuse myself from commenting upon it.
I really think there is, I think all of us up here are emotional human beings who react very emotionally to things. Now, we got Robot Veggie over here, but I am with you. I react very emotionally to things. So like a feel of a deck is something that we can grasp. A lot of players just can't grasp like a vibe of a deck. Like that's just not something that works for them specifically.
Well, that's a thing where I think I have greater faith in people, I guess. I think it is a skill that most people are taught to beat out of themselves. And I think it's something that a lot of things can bring out of you, but Commander deck building and Commander gameplay can bring out of you. And you're probably going to be horseshit at it at first and you get better. But I'm specifically speaking to what you said about, you know, there are these people that they always want to push the limit and these restrictions give them new ways to push the limit. That's what I'm saying. I cannot empathize with that at all. And so I'm going to recuse myself from commenting on that.
I just thought it was funny. We are accidentally dipping our toes into the psychology episode that is coming.
Turns out the psychology of Commander, big fucking deal.
Yep.
Any final notes, Veggie?
No, I think you've been correct this entire time. This entire conversation, I've just been with you 100% of the way.
Yay, Veggie agreed with me once. And that's it. That's
Rambling Time, sponsored by Tony's Cream. Fuck you, Ed's Cream. The check never cleared.
What was the other? I forgot the last cream. Randy's Cream. Don't forget about Randy's Cream as well. Also, get Randy's Cream. His check did clear, but I didn't share it with these two idiots.
Can I take my socks off now?
Mald, say some nice social justice thing about supporting people.
Mald, put the social justice in the bag, all right? Happy Pride, because that's when we film this.
Hopefully, this is still Pride Month. But yes, happy Pride.
It's always Pride Month.
I was going to say, yeah, we can't air. Well, I guess we can't air it if it's not a Pride Month.
Remember, all of your boats should be named after gay men.